This is the best.
Do you hear me?
Of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And welcome to the middle of the week, and we are happy to be here. Glad you are as well. So much to do today, and just not enough time to do it in. Welcome to the program. Your phone calls in a moment at 855-242-7285. Let's get right to some headlines that may have broken since you last checked your Twitter feed. Bryce Brown becomes the fourth Auburn to enter the draft. Now, it's worth pointing out he is testing the waters. He has not hired an agent, so he is eligible to come back. He may not, but he certainly was one of the major reasons why Auburn at least got to the NCAA tournament and had such a great year. You got Brown, you got Harper, Wiley. Heron has already signed with an agent or will sign with an agent. If everyone comes back, but Heron, Auburn's going to be in good shape. But if all of these young men end up getting ticketed to the NBA, it will cause Bruce Pearl some headaches. But certainly a lot to talk about at Auburn, and that's not the only place where there is news today. Ole Miss claims Shea Patterson was not a victim of egregious behavior by the staff. This is certainly the allegations being made by his attorney, who's a familiar name in Ole Miss circles. Anyway, this is the case that ultimately will be decided by the NCAA, but and don't forget, Ole Miss has not heard yet from the NCAA Appeals Committee, so they are continuing to fight. Meanwhile, a year later, Miles Brennan back again in a starting battle, learning another new playbook with another new coordinator. So, same old, but will they get it right on the Bayou? Everyone's hoping. Gene Chizik, he knows a little bit about getting it right. He won the national championship at Auburn in 2010. He'll join us from Starkville. Ross Dellenger later on the quarterback battle on the Bayou. Michael Weiner, remember, this was a story we talked about with Stuart Mandel about attendance in college football on the decline. We'll talk to him later in the program. Well, why don't we get some phone calls going here at 855-242-7285? A lot has happened since we saw you last. Always enjoy hearing from you. So don't wait. Give us a ring now at 855-242-7285 on this mid-April day. Let's start with Ron in Frankfort, Kentucky. Always one of our favorite people. Ron, we've been thinking about you. We miss you. Hope you're progressing. Good afternoon.
Well, thank you, Paul. I'm not only not progressing, I was diagnosed with dementia on Monday.
Oh, my goodness.
So that was a little bit of a setback, and I'm really sorry to hear that. I underwent about 4 hours of testing on Monday, and finally, thank God, I can drive my car locally, not on the interstate, but I can drive it locally. And during the interview process, they asked me if I did anything that might have contributed to a decline, and I told them the Paul Finebaum Show had a lot of crazy callers, and I thought over the years that they had infiltrated my mind, Paul. So,
Ron, I'm not laughing in there because I know you're going through a tough time, but I do appreciate your sense of humor, and I have checked out fairly well with my physician, which is amazing to me because that's my medical physician, not my psychiatrist.
Yeah, it was not the host. It was the callers who are a little bit crazy from time to time, but that's the reason I listen to the program, is that they got such odd takes on stuff and so forth.
Well,
I sure hope that Kentucky moves up a little bit on the football arena this year. I don't know. I think they're well coached, and they brought in some good players, but my God, in the Southeastern Conference, you have to be tremendously good even to be competitive.
Yeah, and that's my concern. And we've had this conversation before, Ron, that Kentucky, it seems like it's a tortoise right now. It's getting better a little bit every year, and I think they need to speed that up because last year, it's a broken record to say this, but they missed a couple of major opportunities, especially with the Gators. That game has to be turned, and last year was a perfect opportunity to do that.
It was. Well, if you have any rich, beautiful women who are also good cooks, and I know that knocks a lot of them out, but a rich, beautiful, good cook, refer over to Frankfort, Kentucky, Paul. I would appreciate it.
Ron, I got 3 in mind. I'm sending them your way right now.
Thank you, Paul. It's always good to listen to you.
Be well, my friend. Really appreciate it. Johnny is up next in Orlando. Johnny,
hello?
Hello, Johnny.
Hi, is this Paul?
It is. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Paul. I enjoy your show. I think you're a gentleman and a scholar.
Thank you very much.
Paul, I wanted to call, but I just wanted to say something. It maybe put a little humor in people with dementia and Alzheimer's. As long as you forget that you forgot, you're okay.
That is pretty good.
But the reason I called, Paul, is I wanted to speak a little bit about the total SEC. Obviously, I'm a Florida fan and a Florida State fan. But, Paul, people are talking down here in the places I go, and even on your show, I've noticed people calling in. It's always about Alabama. I was on hold yesterday for a half an hour, and they told me I'd be on the show, and I was on hold for a half an hour, and you took two Alabama people.
Well, Johnny, let me explain. Yesterday, well, I'm sorry about that, but yesterday was a little bit extraordinary. Alabama was at the White House, so we were paying a lot of attention to that.
Well, they should have been. I mean, anytime a team gets to do that, privilege, that's an honor, that which most people are not going to have or ever have. I don't mind that. It's just, Paul, sit back and look at what goes on. I'm saying this, Paul, because I like you, okay?
Okay.
I'm saying this. You need to look at it because people are calling in, and it's starting to build a base of people being concerned. I know Alabama's successful in football, but you look at, just for example, my Gators, they're number one in baseball. The softball team's always been top in the top. The track and field, the men's indoor track and field won the track and field. But there's other schools in the SEC in which your program is very dedicated to, and you do a great job. But there's you just need to look at it, Paul, and be a little more. And I know you got a war going on between Georgia and Alabama, and that's been going on a long time, and that can be good sometimes, but it shouldn't dominate the show. You should pretty much spread everything out in your show. And when things happen like what happened yesterday, the Alabama players going to the White House, that's something that you really bring forth and show. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just talking about the everyday normal show. And you do such a good job, Paul, at what you do. So I really hope that you will sit back and look and see what's going on and, salvage this thing before it does get out of hand. I don't know if it ever would, but there's a lot of people.
Johnny, let me
say
this. I deeply appreciate what you're saying, and I one thing I believe in is self-evaluation every day on this program, and that call means a lot. Thank you for sharing it.
All right. God bless you.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Let's head right to Starkville, and Gene Chizik joining us, the coach, taking in Mississippi State. Coach, thanks for the time. So you're on the ground. This is a team that a lot of people are excited about, with Joe Moorhead and, of course, Nick Fitzgerald coming back. Thanks for being here, and what have you seen so far?
Well, Paul, it's been a great 2 days, actually. A lot of confidence here, to be honest with you. I spent a lot of time in the last 2 days talking to both players and coaches, and I'll just start with the players. I think that Tax Slayer Bowl did wonders for this football team in terms of, kind of giving them some momentum into the offseason. They're very confident, and they've got a lot of returning starters, 7 or 8 on defense, 9 on offense. I spent some time with Nick Fitzgerald, and he's a very confident guy right now. I think this football team believes in itself. And then I think, again, I just got done having lunch with Joe Moorhead. I think he's a very confident coach. I think he believes that they can come in here with what they're doing, the staff that he's put together, take the nucleus that's here, because they've got a great nucleus to build on and build from, take this thing and run with it. So just the vibe I got yesterday, being at practice, talking with the players, I think there's a lot of confidence here in Starkville.
Coach, when you came back into this league, you had from Texas, you had in Iowa State, you had been here as an assistant. You knew the league. A lot of other people have followed similar paths. Joe Moorhead's coming from a completely different angle, being at Penn State, having been at Fordham. What did he ask you at lunch? I'm sure he was curious about this league.
Well, it was a very interesting lunch. Joe's a very unique guy, and I think that, success has really followed him wherever he's been. And that's why he's a confident guy. He's not a cocky guy. He's a very confident guy. And, when he became the head coach at Fordham, he went in there to a program that was, I think, 1-10. 2 years later, they won a championship. He won a couple of championships there before he went to Penn State and became the offensive coordinator. Obviously, the success they had there with under James Franklin was big. I just feel like, he doesn't care. There's going to be a lot of, and we talked about this, there's going to be a lot of, talk about, hey, look, you're not from here, recruiting in the South, all those things. Like he said, I think I can recruit anywhere. It's about relationships. It's about people. And he certainly feels confident in his coaching ability and his coaching skills. So he doesn't come in here with his hat in his hand. He feels very confident that he's the guy for the job, and he's ready to get this thing rolling.
You certainly are a defensive coach, and we've seen some pictures making their way around with you and the defensive line. Many believe it's certainly going to be among the very best, certainly the duo that you were hanging out with.
Right.
Tell us your assessment of the defense especially.
Well, you talk about confident guys, Paul. These guys are very confident. And again, I call these guys on the defensive line the great erasers. When you look at great defenses, you're looking typically at things that start up front at the point of attack, and you have some real guys up there, and they can erase the mistakes of all the people that are behind them by just simply how they play. And so yesterday we talked a lot with Jeffrey Simmons. We talked a lot with Montez Sweat, who came into the league last year. Nobody really knew who he was, and all of a sudden he just led the league in sacks and was a first-team All-SEC guy. And, of course, Jeffrey Simmons, a 5-star guy coming out of high school, and he has torn it up in this league. I can't remember, Paul, the last time there's been 2 coaches poll first-team All-SEC guys on one defensive line that have both returned together. Usually you get one guy that comes out or 2 guys that comes out. Both of these guys come back, and they were adamant about coming back because they really have a great vision for what this looks like. They're very confident with their defense. I watched them practice yesterday. They got talent on the field. Dan Mullen did not leave the cupboards bare here. You got big, long corners on the perimeter. Mark McLaurin, number 41, the safety, had 3 picks against Lamar Jackson in the Tax Slayer Bowl, tied for the lead in the SEC in interceptions. And you got those guys up front that can really change the line of scrimmage. So I think defensively, Bob Shoup's going to come in here. He's got the bases loaded, so to speak, but they're all confident and they're ready to go.
Talking to Coach Chizik in Starkville, we've discussed the head coach, obviously, the defense. Everyone wants to know about Nick Fitzgerald. Give us your read on what you've seen from him so far and what you expect.
Really interesting, Paul. I had a great conversation with him yesterday. This is a confident guy. And, everyone obviously is going to say, well, where is he in the rehab with his ankle and things of that nature? They're smart about how they're proceeding. They have to be very judicious on exactly how fast they're going to progress him. Went out to practice yesterday. He's throwing 7-on-7. They're not doing anything to put him in harm's way where somebody could roll or fall into his ankle. They feel like he's ahead of schedule. He certainly feels like he's ahead of schedule in terms of where his ankle is. And when you have those kind of gruesome injuries like we saw, a lot of those things, Paul, become, just a mental game with the player in terms of how fast they come back. And he is ahead of the curve right now. He's saying all the right things, but he's stepping into his throws. You don't really see any noticeable limp or anything. When you watch him, he feels 100% confident that he will be ready to go come fall camp. They're being smart the way they treat it right now. And quite frankly, talking to Joe today, Joe feels really good in terms of his progression and learning this offense. He feels like Nick is a cerebral guy, that he can handle all of the new concepts that he's bringing to the table, and that he's thrown the ball, all the circumstances as they are, he's thrown the ball well. So I think there's a lot of hope, and he knows what Nick can do. He talked today about he knows what Nick can do with the ball in his hands, running the football. They're trying to work on challenging the ball vertically down the field. And they'll do their, easy access throws as well. But I think that's a real point of emphasis on throwing the ball down the field. That's what he was big at Penn State on, and that's why they had so much success there.
Before you go, and these are always speculative questions about it, where a team fits in the SEC West, because we know what the top looks like. But after Alabama, maybe Auburn, many expect Mississippi State to be right in there. You're just guessing now, but you know more than we do. From what you've seen of this team and what you know of the league, how do you think they're going to project in the fall?
Yeah, that's a great question, Paul. And again, they've got the bases are loaded. Like I said, they've got the players in place. There's so many variables when there's a new staff. How fast is the buy-in factor? Right now, they're undefeated, so the buy-in factor is extremely high. What happens in the second game of the year and the third game of the year if they stumble and get beat by 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns? How does the team respond to those type scenarios? So there's a lot of variables. But I will say this. If offensively they catch on to the scheme that Joe Moorhead brings in here, if Nick Fitzgerald becomes as healthy 100% by the time kickoff opens September 1st, if all those things fall into place, I think you're looking at a potentially dangerous team, because defensively they've got real dudes out here. I watched them practice yesterday. They've got some real cats. If all of those things fall into place, I think you're looking at somebody that can challenge and make a lot of people in the West nervous. If those things don't fall into place necessarily, if Nick gets banged up in a scrimmage or you don't know how he's going to respond with his injury, there's so many variables like that you don't know. But the table is set. And I can tell you, if I'm a team in the SEC West and this thing gets put together and it kind of starts getting some momentum with Joe Moorhead and kind of the new offensive scheme that he's bringing in, and the confidence this team is bringing from last year, they're going to have their hands full. And so I think that, it's a wait and see. Like I said, there's a lot of variables, but this could be a dangerous team.
Spring game is a week from Saturday. Coach, before you go, we troll for pictures all over the place, and we found one from Starkville where this is what, Danny Brams and you? I can't see.
Well, Brams is here. We were supposed to eat lunch together, but Brams ate all our food, Paul. So Joe and I just starved and just talked. That's all we could do, and drink iced tea because Brams ate everything.
Yeah, listen, we understand that. We'll send him back home. He's got work tomorrow to do.
Absolutely.
Coach,
great to be on with you guys.
Thank you very much. What a pleasure. Gene Chizik joining us from Starkville. Danny Bram. There is a weight limit on the plane. I've flown out of Columbus, Mississippi before.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flail.
Tricia is in Georgia. You're on the air. Go right ahead.
Hey, Paul. I love your show. I watch it every day.
Thank you.
Most of the time, I record it.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm not always home to watch it. But
And by the way, let me offer this advice. That is actually the best thing to do. Just do the what's it called? You put it on your automatic record every day.
Use your DVR.
Right.
Yeah. Just set the series record every day. That way, every time Jim from Tuscaloosa calls in, you just hit the fast forward button and then wait until the end of his call and start right back up again.
Well, that's exactly what I want to talk to you about, because yesterday I was watching, and being a Alabama grad and huge Alabama fan, I was just so proud that my team was at the White House, and all the young men were dressed so nice, and they just seemed very respectful. And I thought Trump was, he tried to make it personal by, calling the different players' names, and I just thought it was great, and I just was so proud. And
I think that's the most fun I've seen Trump have in a long time.
Well, he loves college football.
Yeah. I mean, and him saying, he was at the game and all that, and then I forgot the man's name that came on that kind of critiqued, how everything went on.
Philip Stutz.
Philip Stutz, yes. So, I mean, it was just positive. And then Jim calls, and to be honest, every time he comes on, I just fast forward. It's just, I don't know. He lives in Tuscaloosa, so I'm assuming he must be an Alabama fan. I don't know, but never, ever, and I watch the show every day, have I ever heard him call and talk about football? And yesterday,
let me say this about Jim. He grew up an Alabama fan. His family are all Alabama fans. Jim just has other interests these days. He's very politically inclined, and I think sports is just not a big part of his repertoire anymore.
He quit talking ball.
Your show is a sports show.
Well,
why doesn't he call into some political show? And like yesterday, he didn't say a word. I mean, he's a huge Trump fan, which I am too.
Yeah,
but he didn't say, wow, my president that I've, talked about and supported, and, he's the first one on your show to ever say he was for Trump and all this. Never mentioned Trump, never mentioned the University of Alabama, never mentioned football. All he could talk about was that this Philip Stutz was your
again, Jim,
person in Washington instead of him, which was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's a. What do you think, John?
Jim called us and said he was off the Trump train.
Yeah,
said he was down on Trump, Tricia.
But why do y'all allow him to come on and belittle everybody and be so negative and never talk about football? I mean, I just don't understand that. That's fine. Like Daryl, he kind of gets, out in left field, but at least he's talking about his team. And all the people that call and they're, talking about sports, Jim never talks about sports. So why don't y'all say, if you're not going to talk about sports and all you're going to do is be negative when you call, then don't call, or put out some kind of survey and say, how many people that watch the Paul Finebaum show like to hear negative Ned, and all he does is talk about what he doesn't like. He doesn't like Paul. He doesn't like, the callers. Everything about him is just negative, and I don't like that, and so that's why I record the show, so I can be sure and fast forward through him. So, but anyway, I love the show. It is the highlight of my day, and sometimes I'm watching it at 10 o'clock at night. So thank you for having such a great show and for letting me call.
Thank you very much. Really great to hear from you.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
I'm a one-trick pony, literally. I show up at kids' parties and act cute. That's pretty much it. So excuse me for being bitter. When Geico says not only could we save you money on car insurance, but we do more. Like give you 24/7 access online, over the phone, or even via our award-winning mobile app. Well, ooh la la. Aren't they multi-talented? Hey, I said organic carrots.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Jake is up next. What do you say, Jake?
Hey, not too much, Paul. I was just calling in about the woman that just called in earlier.
Yes.
Hey, Jim, to me, Jim is one of the highlights of the show. I mean, he's a long-term caller. He's been calling in for years. He always brings a little bit of excitement to the show, and I think people are losing sight of that.
Well, listen, ultimately the person to blame for anyone who gets on the air here is me. I mean, I'm not trying to compare myself to a symphony conductor, but a lot of it is you're just kind of looking down in a split second and making a gut call on the person that you think will help the flow of the show go the best.
Hey, I'm telling you, Paul, and that's I'm from Alabama, and hey, that's what made you, because you don't never turn them down. You'll take them blind, crippled, and crazy any day of the week.
That is true.
And that's a fact right there. Well, I was just going to call in and tell Jim, hey, I mean, who else can hit better than Ted Williams? I mean, that's great stuff right there.
Thank you very much for the call. It's funny. I was on another show today, John. Appreciate the call, Jake, in Alabama, and the subject happened to be legend. I was on a political show there, and the host of the show was decrying legend, and that's for another debate, another conversation. But my argument was that this show is built on callers. And I frankly think the overwhelming majority of radio talk show hosts think they're better than the callers. They think
it's a one-way relationship.
They don't need the callers.
That's right.
I feel like we do need the callers, and that's why I went on this program, even though I don't think I'd ever do it again, defending legend. But did legend get carried away? Yeah, maybe he did.
He got excited.
He was proud of the fact that he was on a program.
Braggadocious, proud.
And the host of this show was just so snarky about it and so elitist about it and so arrogant about that this guy misrepresented. Like talk show, like hosts of shows don't misrepresent things far more important than whether a caller to the Finebaum show is actually a co-host of a program that everyone knows is a sponsored element by a race course.
Absolutely, you're supposed to relate, Paul, to the blue collar fan, the blue collar worker, somebody who's hanging in their truck on a Wednesday afternoon listening to the show. You got to relate to that person. You're not supposed to act like you're better than that person. No one wants to be talked down to.
But this guy was clearly talking down to his callers because he is the all-knowing host of a show, and he knows more than anyone else. And by the way, he's not alone. There's nothing unique about this guy except that he happened to be the one who got legend fired. And it just really irritated me, and I came away. And I'm not one of these guys that rail against the media, because I'm part of the media, and I've been part of every aspect of the media throughout my career, and I've seen the good and the bad from the print side, from the digital side, from the radio and the television side. But when people behind the microphone or behind the camera start thinking that they're better than everyone else because they're on, and they better realize that the people at home are what makes this medium work and operate.
That's right. And, Paul, you've had every opportunity to kick these callers to the curb. I've been in meetings where people have said, we don't want those folks calling the show anymore. They're bad for the show. I've been there, and you've stood up for them every single time.
And listen, I'm not making threats, but if people don't want me to do that, I'll find somewhere that they will. That's what makes this so unique. I've done shows where you don't ever talk to anyone, and at some point, I mean, there's only so many people you can talk to that are interesting, and quite frankly, not that many analysts I find very interesting. Some are great, some aren't.
Wouldn't it become nauseating to hear yourself speak for 4 hours straight?
Yeah. And by the way, some people do it really well. Colin Cowherd, I think, is one of the best. He has a method to how he does it. There are political talk show hosts who don't rely on calls. I've had people criticize me saying that guy's a clown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he couldn't do it. I've never said I could. To me, the key to this is the interaction, not me pontificating to you for 3 hours or 4 hours on how much I know. I don't ever claim to know very much, but I always leave here better informed than when I came, thanks to people that call in the show. Justin is in Cleveland, and you're on the air.
Paul, I wrote a song for you today. Called "Can You Please Crawl Out Your Window" by Bob Dylan. You ever heard that one?
Yeah, I remember Dylan singing a song similar to that years ago.
Yeah, and if you're not a Dylan guy, maybe you're a fan of the Doors.
Oh,
they wrote a little tune called "The Cars Hiss By My Window."
You're a big Doors guy, aren't you, Paul?
I do like Jim Morrison. I sure do.
Well, check that one out, Paul.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm probably a bigger Dylan fan than I am a Doors fan. But
well, I mean, maybe you like Reverend and the Makers. They kept it simple. Open your window. Check that one out.
Yeah, that was. Thank you very much. That was actually pre me listening to. I think that was a mid '60s song. I became more of a Dylan fan later. Now that was the Doors era, though. I mean, the Doors are still pretty big today. I mean, in terms of people going back in time, they're a very influential group. And I remember that song. Does that guy feel better about himself that he made fun of? Didn't Martin do that same take yesterday?
He did.
Nose out the window.
There it is. Winder licking good. Is that KFC's new motto?
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
We started the program off with a headline about the future of LSU, especially at the quarterback position. I use all of that as a preamble to welcome in Ross Dellenger, who covers the Tigers. Ross, it's been too long. I hope all is well. We've seen the FPI projections. We've heard conversation about quarterbacks. As we bring you on, let's start at the quarterback position. What do we know?
Well, we know that everybody at LSU, specifically everybody that works and participates in the LSU football operations building, want everybody to know that the quarterback battle is even. That has been a very clear thing. Everything that comes out of that building from players, coaches, administrators, whoever, it's even between the three quarterbacks, Miles Brennan, Lowell Narcisse, and Justin McMillan. They want everybody to know that it is an even battle. As we all know, Paul, it's probably not necessarily exactly true. I'm sure that, and I think all the three quarterbacks do something better than the other, and Ed Orgeron's made that pretty clear. He's been pretty honest about each of their characteristics on the field. Miles Brennan is a better pocket guy. He's got a more accurate arm. Lowell Narcisse, thicker, big frame guy, can do the zone reads, a good runner, and a powerful arm himself as far as throwing it down the field. And Justin McMillan is that guy that kind of brings, I think, both characteristics of the other two quarterbacks and brings 3 or 4 years of college experience. So you've got a little bit different in each, and I think they're right now when you talk to people who do go to those closed scrimmages, they're kind of using the quarterbacks differently when they're in. So LSU's offense kind of looks different depending on which quarterback is in there.
Ross, do you think any of the three are good enough to lead LSU at least back to a seriously competitive position in the SEC West?
Well, out of high school, obviously Miles Brennan and Lowell Narcisse, they signed with LSU last February, and when they signed, there was a lot of hype that came with them. I mean, they were 4 or 5 star kids. I think each of them were top 10 in their class, ranking wise. Miles Brennan being the top 5 pro style prospect. Lowell Narcisse, I think, was a top 10, dual threat guy. So they've got talent. And they've just got different, as we just talked about, different characteristics of talent. I have no idea if one of those guys could lead LSU to a championship. But I'll tell you this: as you know, Paul, it kind of depends on other people around them as well. And that's the thing this year for LSU is that, years past they've had that sturdy, solid, proven running back they can always count on. This year, they don't necessarily have that. They've lost Darius Geis, obviously, and Darrell Williams. Then before that, they lost Leonard Fournette, and before that, they lost Jeremy Hill. So they've always kind of had that guy, and now they don't have that kind of proven running back. And when I talked to Ed Orgeron about that, he says it's going to force us to throw the ball. So if you put the pieces together, you get kind of a picture of what LSU's offense might be like. And I think they want to spread the field a little more, throw the ball a little more. And if they're going to do that, as we just talked about, I mean, the one of those three guys we just discussed has a more accurate kind of pocket presence than the others, and that's Miles Brennan, who beat out the other two in last August for the number 2 job. So, you would think he'd maybe a little ahead, but who knows? Because as you know, we don't see a ton of practice, and we don't see any of the scrimmages.
Ross, big story last week, and maybe this was big down there, maybe it wasn't. We made a big deal about it. Was the FPI projections right around the 500 mark? I mean, everyone knows that's not a good number. Does that lower the expectations for Edo this year, and does that help, or do people down there really care? They just want LSU to be competitive.
Well, certainly. I mean, if that gets out nationally to a certain degree, that 6-6 projection, it obviously lowers expectations. I don't know how many LSU fans actually saw that, but it certainly would lower expectations. I don't know what the kind of perception of this season is by a lot of fans, but you got to look at what LSU lost. And I know every team loses people every year, but the Tigers lost arguably, 13, 14 starters overall. I mean, their offense has just lost about 12 significant players, 10 to 12 significant players who either started or played in a key backup role. So I think their 2 best running backs they lost, their starting quarterback they lost, their 2 top receivers they lost both of their tackles, their center. I mean, it just goes on and on. So to expect something huge from an offense that lost so much in a new offense that they're installing, I don't think fans necessarily expect that this year. LSU's going to lean on the defense, and I know that's what fans don't want to hear, but this is a defense that I think the front seven is going to be pretty salty. Dave Aranda's in year 3. They've got to lean on that D and hope that D kind of keeps them around in some games so they can win late.
Talking to Ross Dellenger, I want to talk to you about the offense. Certainly Steve Ensminger drew a lot of attention arriving, primarily because of what had taken place before him. You mentioned Miles. You mentioned the lack of that quality, or at least 5-star running back that we're so used to. What is this offense going to look like if we see more passing?
Well, yeah, it depends on who they pick as the starting quarterback. But if you were to go with Miles Brennan, it's very clear what the offense is going to be like, and it'll be that spread 3-4 wide receiver. A lot more passing, a lot of one-back sets, maybe under center, one-back, 3 receivers, shotgun, 3 or 4 receivers, and it's going to be leaning on that kind of short, intermediate passing game where Miles Brennan thrives. He's really accurate on those throws. He was a record setter, Mississippi quarterback, and he's good with that. So if you're going to go with Miles, it's probably going to be that type of game, play action, a lot of bootleg, getting him out of the pocket. But it's going to be leaning on the pass, I think, more than LSU's offense has in the past. You go with Lowell Narcisse or Justin and McMillan, you're going to probably have more of that zone read. There's going to be a lot more shotgun. It's going to look a little different. I think a lot of people around here would say that Miles is the favorite. He beat out the other 2 in August. So if you look at what you got in Miles Brennan, you got to play his strengths, and that's throwing the ball, and that's pocket passing. So, he's pretty accurate from what I can tell. When you talk to people who do go to those close scrimmages, he's got some zip on those passes. He's pretty accurate on those intermediate shots. So I would expect, a lot of people around here have brought up the LA Rams offense, what they did last year, and that's something that LSU is going to go out and visit the Rams, their coaching staff, after the spring. So they're that kind of offense that they ran over there last season that thrived in the NFL. I think you might see some concepts that LSU is going to pull for that if they do go with Miles Brennan.
Finally, Ross, and these are the hardest questions to answer, but it is April, so why not throw them at you? We talked about the projections. You know this team. You think you know what's going on at practice, or at least you know what you hear. Is there a range you have in mind? Do you think LSU is better than that projection?
The 6-6 projection, yeah,
yes.
That struck me, a little surprising, and not to say LSU's going to go 10-2 or 11-1, but 6-6 is slightly low for a team that I think defensively is seasoned pretty seasoned in really talented. I think the front seven, which we all know is so important in the SEC, I think they're going to be pretty salty, and I think they're going to keep them every game. So, 6-6 was a little low. I don't know what I would pick now. I mean, it's so far out to the season opener against Miami, but I'll tell you this: the schedule does LSU no favors. They get the normal SEC West lineup, but then they throw in Georgia this year and throw in Miami at a neutral field.
Always great to catch up, Ross. We will be in touch. Thank you for being with us. So, best wishes and talk soon.
All right, thanks, Paul.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Let's move along and check in with I-Man.
Good afternoon, Paul. How's it going?
Excellent.
I was listening to this guy call earlier, and I guess the first hour, and he was talking about Florida baseball and you aren't kind of fair and that kind of thing. The rules to this show, ladies and gentlemen, are real simple. It's caller-driven. It's your topic. Now, you can immediately turn off the host because your topic is so far out there, but let me give you a clue. If you get real bizarre, your topic gets kind of interesting. And Paul's going to ask you questions. And if he asks you questions, then that's because you are the bizarre of the bizarre, and we're interested. We love crazy stuff. And I think Paul loves crazy stuff better than the rest of us. But it's really just caller-driven. Now, Paul, you was talking about this radio show some of your caller had or something, and you seem to be attacking the industry that you're in, and I understand that. But you also got to understand the people that they are talking about, that particular person. That particular person comes up, and he's warm, and he's charismatic and all those kind of things, but he's a snake in the grass. And he says he's rehabilitated. You think he's rehabilitated. I noticed the thing he said the other day was, that was 20 years ago. Well, for 60 years, I never killed anybody either. And I know a lot of people that never did. So it may be a new record for him, but when does he quit dragging that dead boy around and flaunting him to promote himself? And with this $80,000 a year job, is he paying any restitution? The guy is so self-centered, he's a complete turnoff, and he's a jerk, and when you meet him and you talk to him, he moves in on you. And then before you know it, you can't get rid of him. And then he starts lying and those kind of things, and he tries to be intimidating like his running buddy. But he's got to understand that hood rat stuff don't play in the real world with real people. We're not going to tolerate that, and most people won't, and most people are not scared of it. Now, you said something yesterday about somebody almost coming to blows, and they did. I don't know that you saw that. And wasn't that you and K-Dub?
Yeah.
Yeah, if anybody touched anybody, I leaned into K-Dub. K-Dub never touched me.
Okay.
He wouldn't even shake my hand because he felt like I should have done it in front of everybody. And then he goes off with his hood ran, hollering and screaming and pointing and stuff. I never ran from him.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Squirrel, I hope your phone is better.
Well, I hope it is too. I'm on my way back from Hattiesburg. If I lose you, I apologize, but just hang up on me. But one thing these callers can do, they like you say, they need to turn off their TV. They need to only go through their telephone and listen through their telephone because, like I said, it's kind of distracting and it throws them off. And when you hear the show in the background, it's distracting to us listeners also. But, man, I've just been listening, and it's been a great show so far. And, I really enjoyed the anti-Jim call from the lady earlier. Then I liked the pro-Jim call right back to back. And then you came on and you gave your discussion about going on there and talking to someone and having the issue with Legend come on. And then went scorched earth on us right there with the comments. So, like I said, I'm kind of thrown back a little bit. But, as I'm listening to your show, I'm thinking at the same time, your guys in the studio, John and Mark, are they in Bristol?
No, they're in the same place I am. John,
they're in
that's
Charlotte?
correct. John,
Okay.
You're in the same city as I am?
Yeah, about an arm's length from Paul right now.
There's been a lot of talk about it.
Well, I mean, by the way, they are not in the studio. They are down the hall from me, but they are in the same building, yes.
Sure. Well, okay. I didn't know if they were, in Bristol and you were in Charlotte. I didn't know how it worked out. But, there's been a lot of talk about interns lately with the, interns that Alabama has gotten. And, there's been some issues between John and Legend. That's been kind of well documented. I was just thinking, as a start for Legend yesterday, like I said, why don't you give him a job? Why don't you make him John's intern? You can put him on the payroll. You ain't got to pay him a whole lot, but, it would be a start. And then, like I said, all you got to do is get your foot in the door, and then it's up to that person to work his way up from there. And so that, that's just an idea I want to throw out there.
Well, this is a corporation, Squirrel. We'd have to go through an HR background check. I don't know how that would play out. We could do it, and I'm certainly not opposed to having Legend fetch me a cup of coffee, shine my shoes.
The first thing you got to do is have them bring you a cup of coffee.
Yeah, that would be perfect. So, I like it black.
That would be
for the
classic. But enough of Legend. And I'm not anti-Legend. I mean, if you go back and look through history, for some reason, Legend started attacking me a few months ago with this, back when he was estranged from the show, when he was making allegations that he was one of the original Saturday Night Live cast members and all of us.
Was he before Aykroyd and after Belushi?
Yeah, he was one of the original guys, and I guess all of us other callers are clowns according to him.
Well, I just think it's unfair that everybody decided to beat up on Legend and Jim.
Well, don't act like they're innocent babes in the woods, Paul. I mean, my God, what you reap, you sow. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I've heard that rumor.
Or something of that nature. So anyway, like I said, I mean, don't act like they're just innocent strangers and we're all of a sudden bullying on these guys. I mean, the reason I got on Jim's radar and he got on my radar years and years ago was because he is a bully and because he is a braggart, and that just rubbed me the wrong way. But I'm not against Jim calling in. You get a lot of calls, ban Jim, and I've never said ban Jim. Because for one reason, I wouldn't be able to call in if Jim was banned. So I'm not banning Jim. I just wish he would not come on here and lie like he does, and then get upset when we don't believe his lies. I mean, like, I could ask any one of you guys, did you play on any sports team at any point in your life? And anybody would say, yes, I played on this team during this year, and I did this and that. Jim, he makes all these allegations like he would have been a Cooperstown before 25, but yet you can't pin him down to anything. I mean, and that tells you right there that he's lying, because, again, he can only give so much facts without it being blatant. But it's a great show so far. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you, Squirrel. You've inspired us all.
By the way, I looked up Ted Williams' batting average earlier today.
Hi.
Career.
Hey.
344.
344, wow.
Pretty good.
Nick is next.
Hey, Paul, what's going on today, buddy?
All good, Nick.
Great, Paul. I just want to have a few comments. Of course, I love your show, Paul. God, I love it. Look, talking about these, you had an earlier call today from old Johnny from Orlando saying he was on hold for half an hour to get into your show. You remember that?
I do remember that, yes.
Well, Johnny needs to know that I hold the record for being on hold for the longest. I sent y'all a tweet. Y'all put it up.
How long were you on?
You remember that, Paul? You highlighted my tweet. 3.5 hours.
Congratulations.
Sorry you didn't last long.
I'm a regular caller. So you need to people, don't worry about regular calls get put on hold too for a long time. But it ain't no big deal because I love the Finebaum show, and I'm going to wait as long as it takes to get to talk to you. The other thing I want to talk about, you said that, hey, y'all had a production meeting about who calls to take and who not to take. I hope I didn't make the short goal list on that.
No, you're good.
I'm good to go. Bama Nick's good to go.
You're one of the best. You're one of the best, Nick.
You're good to go, Nick. Good to go right out the window there. Next caller is Jim. Hey, Jim.
I'm sorry, man, but I've had all this I can stand, all of it I won't. I'm going to stop calling your show. But
no,
let me finish, Paul.
Jim, I'll have no one to talk to.
Let me finish, please. Please let me finish.
Okay.
It's because I told you because of a scumbag lying snakes like that guy, that buffoon just now, the squirrel, whoever he is, Ronnie from Mississippi, a total liar, a total jealous punk. Same with iMonkey, who you had to, I guess, cut off the air a while ago. These people are worse than Charles Manson. I don't know if they killed anybody, but they're worse than Charles Manson, in my opinion, as far as their attitude, as far as their low-down ways of lying. He called me a liar, Paul. I've lied about nothing about my career.
Jim.
I got hurt before I could make, the big leagues. I was that good in my... But here I go. If I talk about myself, they'll say he's bragging. I've not lied to you one time about anything I've done, Paul. You've heard people say I could play everything and play it exceptionally well. I didn't get a chance to play college ball. I played high school. I was on the American Legion team when I got injured. I told you all that. But, anybody that played with me or saw me play, that's all I know to say. What else can I say? I didn't get old enough to do, 7. I told you I had scouts watching me when I was 16 in baseball. That's all I can say. What else? Where have I lied? I want you to point out I just want to say he's the liar. I want you to point out where the liar squirrel said I've lied.
I just want to say one thing. Charles
Manson, I want you to point it out, damn it. I'm sick of this.
Charles Manson killed 9 people.
I don't care. I said an attitude. I didn't say that. I said their attitude is as bad as to me as him. I put him in the same. I put them in the same category. Let me finish.
Okay.
With snakes like him. Because they lie and make up crap about me every day. I'm not a bully, but I can get provoked to hell like that, like just now, about fools like them saying things they say that are wrong. That's all false and garbage. You tell me where I've lied.
I can't find a place where you lied.
Well, all right. I was a genuine player. What is this son of a, what has he done? Where's any proof?
He played high school football.
Man, they've done nothing. They've done nothing in sports that I know of. They've got no history. They're not capable. They're not talented. They're not talented on the radio. All they can do is attack people like me and Legend, who they know are superior to them in every way.
Well, first of all, I think you know how I feel about Legend, okay?
Yeah, I don't know how you feel about me, but you used to say I was, pretty good. Yeah, I've lost my temper in the last 8 or 9 years, Paul, because of scumbag like them, and you promote those whats. You promote them. You open the door for them.
How do I, Jim?
Well, you say, what about, many days you've said to the squirrel, what about Jim? You know it's going to open the door for him to say all the garbage.
I didn't say that tonight.
No, but you've done it all through the years. You've done it. I'm not a fool, Paul. I see and hear what you do. That's why I don't want any part of your show anymore. I'm not going to call anymore because I don't want to associate with those fools. That's why I told you I didn't want to go to any of those parties. I don't want to be around that scum.
That's fair, Jim. That's fair.
But again, I want you to point out to the audience anything that I've lied about, and that fool says I've lied about. I guess he doesn't think I can play ball, never could play ball, never was talented enough to be, whatever. And you asked me my opinion about how well I could hit a baseball. That's all I did was give you my opinion.
Jim, I know. Listen, that was yesterday.
Like Squirrel just brought it up again, and then John Hayes brought it up, mocking about Ted Williams. I've been putting up with it for 10 years. It's all based on a lie. All based on a lie, Paul.
Well,
And I promise you, I'm going to do all I can not to be on this show anymore because I don't need this crap. I don't want it.
Well, Jim, I think you know how I feel.
Doesn't matter how you feel, Paul. It's how I feel now.
Okay.
I'm concerned about my feelings.
Well, listen, I'm not. I don't know what else I can do other
Nothing,
than.
but just I want you to tell the audience any way you found that I've lied about Squirrel, that idiot Squirrel, who does not tell me what he does that's constructive on this show. Tell me anything he does except criticize me, belittle me, put me down when he doesn't know a thing about me. He's lied about me in every way. And same with Legend. We excelled on your show, Paul. You said that. The audience has said that over the years. But what has he done?
Well,
criticize me, and that's all he can do because he's
Jim,
a hater. He's a damn hater is all he is.
Jim, you know how I feel. I mean, I stood up for Legend today on some ridiculous program.
Well, you haven't stood up for me with that spoof Squirrel. You never have. You always let this eye monkey fool just say anything derogatory and make a joke out of it. That's all you've done is make jokes out of these fools. And they are fools, I'm telling you.
So if you were sitting in my shoes, what would you do, Jim?
Man, I'm glad I'm not. That's all I can tell you. I'm glad I'm not in your shoes. I'm glad I'm not. And you know, the intelligence comparison here is ridiculous in regard to Squirrel and eye monkey. They're both just morons. That's all they can do is criticize because they got no talent, they got no ability, they got no knowledge about anything.
Why don't you leave them behind and call in and talk about things other than them?
Because every damn day I call, they come behind me and trash me for 3 hours, and you let it go on, and you make a big deal out of it. And all the callers believe them. Like Millie today said, "Oh, Paul, he doesn't compare to you. He's talking about me." I mean, everything's a slant insult against me, Paul. So do you think I enjoy that? I mean, this is not rocket science, Paul. You know what's going on here. You think I want to be made a spectacle out of every day when I'm superior to 99% of your people that on the show, especially including the morons that you have over there sitting behind you? That's a fact. People tell me that every day. Why do you call Finebaum and let him do what he does to you?
You're talking about Hayes and...
Yeah, I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Every day they make some snatchy remark about me, which is a lie. I don't know, because I've made them mad because I've called them out. I'm going to call out anybody. I'm not like Trump, Paul. You jump on me, I'm coming back at you double. And that's why they don't. And Squirrel calls me a bully because I do that. I just respond to people. I don't go after them to start with. I just respond back. And he's a stinking low-life fool. That's what he is. I'm telling you. I know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Now, call me a bully if no, I'm not the nicest guy in the world when it comes to scumbags like Squirrel and I-Man. I've got things I can prove I've done. People know what I've done that know me, Paul. They know what talent I've got. You know what talent I've got. I'm not trying to brag, but compare them to me in any way as a caller, as a contributor. Ask Danny Sheridan, ask Mike Rader. Thousands of people that have respected and liked me, even you in the book, and yet you let these creeps run me off. Same they're going to do with Legend. That's what's wrong with politics, Paul. They're running off the decent people, and you got creeps and snakes replacing them. That's why the damn country's gone to hell.
I agree with you on that part.
You agree with me on most parts, and you know it.
I do.
You just won't admit it.
Well, I just did.
All right, well, that's all I got to say. I guess I'm just sick of this, Paul. I'm sick of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Larry is up next, and you're on the air. Go right ahead, Larry, in Missouri.
Hey, Mr. Finebaum, how you get along today?
Oh, good, Larry. You?
Hey, great. I tell you what, boy, me and my crazy dreams and Ted Williams. I mean, you can't beat them two now. I mean, this show is today is just better than eating a handful of mushrooms. I mean, let me tell you. First, I got to tell you, and now this has been going on for a while, between that Matt guy, I don't know who in the world he is, and Daryl. I mean, this kind of comes back to the national news, where you see these parents locking kids underneath the cellar and chaining them out in the backyard. I mean, when I hear these two old boys, it kind of gives me a little more perspective on the parent side of it. And as far as Teddy, I'm glad he's calling back in because I thought he passed away. I mean, 73, hell, you're on borrowed time. But I will say this, I do appreciate and I really respect his gravitas. But back in Oklahoma, we just call them blue balls. Thanks, Paul.
Larry is up next.
Paul Finebaum, hey, man. Jim, he touched me, man. That touched me. I'm telling you, I'm serious. And Big Ten John, I want to say something. This call has moved me. Can I say something to you?
Did Larry, did you just say Jim touched you and it moved?
Yeah. Yeah, he moved me, brother.
Larry, I want you to explain that, because I think I know, but I'm not sure everyone else does.
Yeah, he just, when I listen to Jim, all of a sudden, man, I got goosebumps and I got like a movement, you know. Wow, I went, my God.
Like movement in your hands or a bowel movement?
He hasn't felt that way in years.
Not a bowel movement, it could have been. But I was thinking about Mark and Big Ten John. I want to apologize for any erroneous things I have said about y'all. I want to move to that side of the tracks, man, where I just want to apologize, man, for being so mean to y'all. Have you ever heard of how you get that feeling? And Jim he moved it, man. Didn't you feel the earth shake when he started talking?
I felt the earth move under my feet.
Yeah.
I felt the sky.
Big Chin John, you accept my apology?
Absolutely, Larry. How could
I wrong? Yeah.
I have to ask you this, though, Larry. What specifically about Jim's call touched you?
Well, when he was talking about how nobody cares about Jim, and nobody gives him 1 ounce of credit for the things he's done for this show, and how he has moved this show from the 0 meter to the off the chart, and now he's right back into being just plain old Jim. Right back where he always starts. And now, Paul, what's now? What's next? And when I heard him say that, I said, that's me. That's me. I'm the same kind of way. I'm back to ground zero with Mark and Big Ten John. And I don't listen, I have moved today, brother, and everybody out there. I know there's a lot of callers waiting to call in to say how Jim moved him. I mean, I'm serious. Big Ten John? We cool? We cool? Big Ten.
Capiche.
Are we okay?
Larry, have a great afternoon, brother. We love you.
Yes, sir. I love you, man. I love y'all. Remember that. Tell Mark. No bad. All good, Jack.
I love you too, Larry. We'll take a short break and love everyone else.
We love all y'all, man. I love all y'all.
I love you, Larry.
I love you, man.
I love you more. I love you more. I love you more, Larry.
All y'all. Radio land. Whatever.
Thank you for listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. The Paul Finebaum Show airs weekdays on the SEC Network, beginning at 3 Eastern.